Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
And away we go. Purple Access. It's Judd. It's Chip Scoggins back after some vacation time and some being on assignment from the Star Tribune, of course. And Ross Brendel, as always, producing the show. Chipper, let's start here because it's been a while since we've talked about the Vikings. As we get set, and of course, training camp now right around the corner. Basically, once the 4th is done, I think the rookies report the 21st. And then the veterans are in a couple days after that. What intrigues you the most right now? Like, I think the Jefferson contract took place after we got talked last. There's a lot of things here. What intrigues you the most as training camp nears?
Quarterbacks. You can never have enough quarterbacks. Yeah, the drama of Jefferson, we don't have to worry about that going into training camp. To me, it's the two, well, there's more than two quarterbacks, but Darnold and J.J. And right. The fact that J.J. is sticking around, right, through summer and learning the playbook, that's encouraging. There's been a lot of talk about how he looked through minicamp and OTAs, and I would say he looked like a rookie. Every other rookie that we've seen play quarterback come through here in the first off season. It's some good, some bad, just all across the board. And so nothing that I saw surprised me in the mini camps. Did it you? Particularly with McCarthy. I mean, I didn't think he was going to set the world on fire.
Well, his arm was stronger than I thought.
Yeah, I've always thought that. When I saw him in person against the Gophers, the thing that jumped out to me was his athleticism. Mm-hmm. He was a lot faster than I guess I knew. And he had a couple deep balls in that one. And I think his arm strength, from what I saw him this year, I didn't really have a concern about that. So, but in terms of, and we saw it, like there would be a good pass and then a pass where you're like, whoa, he missed the mark. That's to be expected. I mean, this whole thing of drawing conclusions off of the first off-season work with him, it's ludicrous. So, but I do like the fact that he's sticking around, learning the thing, and there is not that there was going to be any question anyway, but there is absolutely zero doubt about who's the starting quarterback is going to be.
Yeah, and it's intriguing because there is almost zero doubt that Darnold is going to start, right? And then that McCarthy's going to succeed him. The Darnold thing intrigues me. Like, so I think we're biased because, Darnold was such a bust and he got taken by the Jets and he was a failure there. And look, the Jets are bad too. And then he goes to the Panthers. I guess I don't know if I would say I'm more intrigued than most, but I am curious to see what Darnold can do, because I do think that the year in San Francisco, just in that system, not even playing, probably helps. And I don't know that it's fair to call him a lost cause yet. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but could he rebound and put together a year that gets him paid pretty well elsewhere?
Do you look at this as a clean slate, or can we just not forget the Jets years in your mind as everything is contact, because it's like, if you knew nothing about him and you're just watching him as clean slate, but it's almost like we're like, okay, wait for the other shoe to drop.
Well, that's what I think. That's how we think. And until he proves that, the picks are a problem. There are definite red flag problems, but that being said, I also don't know how much of that was Darnold's fault and how much was Gase his first coach with the Jets?
Yes.
And I mean, that was a disaster.
Yeah, that was a disaster. Yeah.
And then Carolina has proven to be a dumpster fire of sorts. So
we've said all along that this is going to be a referendum on Sam Darnold, because you could explain away the Jets or, the struggles, Panthers, things that have happened early in his career. You can say, well, he wasn't surrounded by good coaching, didn't have the right talent. I don't think you're not going to say that about him here, right? Coaching's good. The talent around him's good. It's an ideal situation for a quarterback to come in. So this is, and I'm sure he's looking at this too as I got a year to prove myself to the league to get another big contract, a long-term contract somewhere. And so if it doesn't work here, it's probably not going to work for him. He's going to be a career backup,
Correct.
And so, yeah, I'm curious to see. And there was nothing. I mean, he looked fine in minicamp. I mean, he looked like he knew the offense and ran it. And there's to sit here and draw any concrete conclusions on him either. That's the other thing. It's like the pace that O'Connell does with his offseason workouts is so different. I mean, he's more about learning and going slower than, probably a lot of other coaches. So it's, that was half speed, a lot of that stuff, so, but I'm curious to see once, because he always says training camp is the competitive part. So once they get back to training camp and the action tempo and everything speeds up, I want to see how Darnold responds in.
To your point, Chipper, there is so little now that can be taken out of these camps. Like I said, McCarthy's arm strength impressed me, but I can't make any grand, I know his mechanics aren't great yet because they talked about that, but that's got nothing to do with observational skills. Among the things that I saw that I thought were like a sort of a whoa, is it looks like, and this was also discussed subsequently, but you could see it as well. Jordan Addison is when Jefferson was not at the OTAs, Addison had some of that Percy to him, where of the position group, he was just clearly better.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be a great NFL scout, but I remember the first practice I watched him. If you just watch him in individual drills, you're like, okay, that looks different. Just how smooth and quick he is. And you mentioned it too. I mean, it's perfect analogy is Percy. When Percy first showed up and you saw him, it was like, okay, he does that differently than everybody. He just looks different. And I thought it was, I wasn't there the day that Addison did the big press conference, but I looked at his quotes and you felt like he kind of came out of his shell, was more insightful than what we saw at all last year, which is to be expected. Year 2 years going to feel more comfortable, but him talking about really working on his releases and being more explosive, and he felt like that was an area that he really needed to improve on. So that's all positive to me, that a young guy found something in his game that has to get better at, and then you're seeing it on the field, right? You're seeing him apply that, and a lot of guys were buzzing about him, in camp and kind of how he's looked. So, man, if he takes a big step, and you put him with Jefferson, that could be, because they need that, right? Yes. Particularly because, how long is Hawkinson going to miss? I mean, he's not going to play early in the season. I mean, he's not going to be ready.
6 games, maybe?
Yeah. It's not, I was thinking a month, but maybe it's, So they're going to need to lean on those, because you're taking away a big target for Darnold. So, but the other kind of person that stood out to me was Dallas Turner. Man, he looks really explosive. Mm-hmm. He looks like he's going to be a player for Brian Flores, I think.
Mm-hmm. On Justin Jefferson, gentlemen, one thing that I'm looking forward to seeing this year, and some of it will just come from what you see on the sidelines when the Vikings face adversity. What is he doing? Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing team leader Justin Jefferson in a year where, let's assume he stays healthy, things might not be all hunky-dory. He's probably not receiving the football from a quarterback to the caliber of Kirk Cousins. Maybe Sam Darnold will prove us wrong, have a career year, get that big paycheck that we talked about. But I'm interested to see what Justin Jefferson looks like. The money that he's making, whether he wants it or not, and I'm not saying he's ever been bad at this, but he's going to be now a de facto team leader, and people are going to look to him in times of adversity. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like, because you don't often see that from a wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, and he's already talked about that, and you can see that he's going to take ownership of that. Like, this is his team now, right? And he's probably, just by his greatness and how he approaches it, that's part of the leading. But we've seen him.
Yeah.
We've seen him express frustration in the past. I mean, the one thing with he was caught on mic with Kirk saying, "Kirk, throw it up," or a couple times. But it's never been detrimental. It doesn't seem like where we had Stephon in the past, Diggs or Percy, where it became like an issue. Like with Jefferson, he does it in a way that it doesn't feel like it's going to blow up and mushroom into something more than what it is. So, but that's just his competitiveness. You all see it, but I think you're going to see him be more of a vocal leader, and he's been doing that more last year, but I think even more so this year.
Yeah, because he got named a captain last year.
Yeah,
but the thing about him, so where he's always been a presence is he's just the type of person people follow. Like the second he's got a swagger. And so he walks into the room and like all eyes go to him, which is what I can consider one of the most fundamental important things, because you can't declare yourself a captain. Like you can't do that. And Jefferson's got that. But yeah, he almost always, it feels like, leads by positivity.
Yeah.
There's frustration, but there's never, for lack of a better term, bitching. I've never seen a lot of bitching from him.
He has a lot of that.
He
has
works
a lot
his
of that
ass
ant
off
in
too.
him. Well, that's it. Yeah. And he has a lot of that ant in him, Anthony Edwards, where it's like stressing the positive, but he also has that ant in him. Is like, hey, dudes, I'm the best guy on the field. Like, if I have the best player in the field, I'm following him, right? And same thing with like Edwards. Like, we got the best player, I'm going to follow him. But it is always, because you think about it, like last year with all the turnover and quarterbacks and all that. And he said, I like catching him from Kurt. He's our guy. But he also said, I don't care who's playing quarterback. I'm going to make plays. I'm going to help him out. So it wasn't like, well, woe is me. I got, I'm down to the fourth quarterback. And what, how's this going to affect me? It's like, no, I'm going to make plays for whoever my quarterback is. So I like the way he handled that. And I think he'll continue to do that.
So Chipper, on as far as free agent additions go, what's your feeling on Aaron Jones? Because, he plays a position that we don't really talk about a lot now. It used to be when we were kids, running back was God.
Yeah.
And now they're not. But, when you go back and look at O'Connell's first few years here, just statistically, they have, for various reasons, not put an emphasis on a part of the game that's absolutely crucial to success in the passing game. What's your thought process on what Jones is going to do to the run game as a whole?
Well, why I'm answering this, somebody look up his size, because the first thing that jumped out to me was he wasn't as big as I thought he'd be.
No.
Like when you watch him on field, I thought he was going to be a giant, but he's
he
not
looked
very
stout.
big.
He looked stouter. He looked bigger, muscular-wise in Green Bay, and in person, he looks
when
like
I saw him in person, I was like,
average guy.
Yeah. But I mean, you look at the way he was performing down the stretch for Green Bay last year. It's like, holy cow, this guy is. Yep. He still has a lot left. Well, you go back to
208 Chipper 5'9",
he didn't look 208 to me.
Football reference.
No, yeah, but he's a dynamic talent, and you go back to the Dalvin year, and there's just so many lost yardage. It was like back to famine, feast, and he had some big explosive runs. There was like 3 or 4 that changed the game or won a game.
The Dolphins,
but a bunch,
won. Buffalo,
Buffalo. Right. But a bunch of 0 or -3 yard runs that I think drove O'Connell crazy. So then they're not re-signing him. We're going to be more efficient, right, in the run game, and they were less efficient. Madison just was not the guy, and so I know the first year, and I can't remember the stats last year, but they were bottom 5, right, in rushing attempts. I don't think that they're never going to be a high volume running team under O'Connell. I don't think
they need to be higher than that, though.
But they need to be higher than that, because if you can have some bounce, especially with JJ as a quarterback, I mean, play actions where he's really good at and he's excelled at it. So if you can add that component, I think Aaron Jones will, because I think he has more than Dalvin left than more than Dalvin had, and he's just better than Madison. And so I think there's going to, and remember, they went outside the blocking tight end. We're going to be, this is what's going to help us. Be more physical, that whole storyline. So, but I think it's going to be more of a threat and more of a, something that they lean on, and particularly using Jones maybe as a pass catcher too.
That's what
than what we've seen the first 2 years.
That's where I think it becomes imperative, because now if you've got threats, if you've got a deep threat in Jordan, Justin can be an incredible
everywhere.
yeah. And then you got Jones. That's where I'm very, very curious. But just for the sake of the offense, I think that the run game has to become a threat. And I mean,
Yeah.
by last year, it just was not. Like
Well,
you were
no,
literally living and dying with the pass, which with, some of the guys that came after Cousins. I mean, Nick Mullins needs every bit of help that he could possibly get, and you basically couldn't or didn't give it to him.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, and they still threw the ball down the field. It's still vertical. So like O'Connell's like, this is our system. We're not, this is what we're going to do. But I think it's not ever, I don't believe with O'Connell going to be something that they rely heavily on. But you can still be pretty darn efficient and effective and make it a threat even within that realm.
As we've talked about, Chip, for a long, long time, it needs to be in the back of the defense's mind. Like whether you use it or not, it has to be there. And I mean, to go back to Favre in 09 with Adrian, right? Yeah. Just the threat of Peterson made Brett so damn effective because you never knew and you couldn't take it for granted. Now that's a special player in Peterson, but at least has to be in the back of your head or the defensive coordinator's head that this could be an issue.
And if they get the Aaron Jones version of the last, 8 games last year that he really just was dynamite for Green Bay. If they get that version of Aaron Jones, then you'd be foolish not to, maximize that. Because I mean, he was just really, really a weapon for them, and made that offense so much more difficult to defend because it's like, they had all those wide receivers, and he's breaking off runs, and so that to me was a very, very smart pickup by the Vikings when Packers did what they did with their running back situation for them to pounce and get Aaron Jones in here because I just think he could 142 rushes in 11 games. I think he can really add an element to this offense that's been missing.
The Cowboys playoff game, he was in Dallas. He was absolutely incredible. So yeah, that's one where I think that, like, if O'Connell has faults, I think that's one where he needs to straighten that out a bit. There's things O'Connell that I'm curious. I'm not sure about you about this. In year 3 now, going into I'm curious about. One is that one, just from a play calling standpoint. Period. Okay. The other is I think that in-game management actually slid backwards a little bit last year. I thought his first year was pretty good, and I'm not saying it was terrible, but I'm just saying it felt like, and he's trying to call plays too, so I understand how harried that can be. But it felt like the in-game, some of the head coaching stuff suffered a bit, and that's the type of stuff that can easily decide a game in this league.
Are you talking 2-minute timeout, those type things?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, with the running back situation, I think I do think that they just got frustrated with the first year with all the minus runs and Dalvin and not, always being in second and 12 or, and so I think he just said, forget that. I don't want to go down that path. And then Madison just proved not to be the guy last year. I mean, between the fumbles and just not being able to, when they made him the lead back, I still felt like, I don't know, I thought he was just a nice, solid backup, but not the guy that you want to be your lead back. I do think Aaron Jones is going to change the way O'Connell views that part of it. The in-game stuff, I wonder how much of that was him being distracted by the quarterback situation and just a revolving door there. Where
it might have been.
He was just trying to hold the thing together, because that was just chaos. I mean, last year just felt like chaos all the time because you had no idea who was going to be your quarterback and the guys in and out. So
in games.
Yeah. So
to your point, Chip, do you notice some of that more when the team is not winning versus the year before when they win 13 games? Does it just stand out a bit more?
For sure. Like when you're winning, well, you think about it, like that first year where they were winning, but we're like, man, this defense, this formula is not.
Yeah.
This is not sustainable. All the one score wins and all this is like, it's easy to paper over things when you're winning. And remember, they had that win streak, and then as soon as they lost, that's when was it Detroit? That's when O'Connell came out and said something about we got to be more aggressive or something. Whatever. That's the first time he
defensively.
Defensively, he said something about the defense. You notice warts more when a team's not performing well.
Well, and they came back in 22. I believe Kirk tied a league record with 8 fourth quarter comebacks.
Yeah,
that's not just. That was fun and credit to Kirk and the team. But you're not going to repeat that. That's a 1 year. In fact, that bites you in the ass the next year because karma's going to catch up to you. That always comes back. So, but I just felt like there were some things, and this again goes with I think trying to balance calling plays, looking at plays. I am curious. I'm not saying O'Connell is ever going to give up play calling, so don't hear this wrong. But is McNown going to do? Is he going to be more involved? I think that addition is really, really intriguing because it's another fellow QB, really, really smart football guy. I just wonder if Kevin in some ways is graduating from Wes being a sounding board to, okay, here's a guy who's going to think like I think.
Well, that is one thing that you saw is like J.J. or whoever Darnold will go right to McCown. And then you're like, well, okay, then Wes Phillips is the offense coordinator. But O'Connell's calling the play, so it's like
right.
There's a lot of voices and a lot. I would be stunned if O'Connell gave up the play calling, much like Mike Zimmer never would.
I don't think he's going to.
You sort of that's how they feel like they, it's their offense, their thing, their show. I would be surprised with that. But it is interesting. I think McCown's going to be a big presence because so much of this is about the quarterbacks this year, right? That, is Wes Phillips putting the game plan together? Is it the sounding board, like you said? I'd be curious to see kind of how that how that group works together.
Well, and it was intriguing after the first OTA when I think J.J. talked initially in the spring, and J.J. made sure to say, because he's not dumb, he made sure to say that, I got a lot of voices coming at me, but they're all on the same page.
Yeah, well, that's it.
He cleared that up, and I don't even think he was.
All you reporters are trying to dig. You're just trying to dig.
I don't think he was asked the question yet. He's just like, there's a lot of people talking to me, but they're all saying the same thing. And I was like, yeah. And I thought to myself, yeah, but
that's called preemptive strike.
Yep,
that's a preemptive strike. But yeah, and that I tend to agree with that because we hear that collaboration and all that, but let's not be naive here. This is Kevin O'Connell's show. It's his offense, his way, and he's going to make sure the guys, his lieutenants, are passing the message that he wants along. So I don't think it'll be any kind of any issue in terms of too many cooks in the kitchen thing. No, I mean they got a pretty good operation going. I was thinking about this, Jeff, before I came on, like kind of to wrap up the OTAs. I thought were you there when Kwesi talked at the day that
I caught the end of Jefferson. I caught the last few minutes of it.
I felt like that was probably the most insightful that I've heard him go in detail about different things related to roster construction. I got to talking to him. A question I asked him I thought was interesting that both O'Connell and Kwesi, like when they got hired, sat down and made a document. I followed up. I was like an actual document, He said, yeah, that they made a checklist basically of what they needed to do to basically get to the position where they are now. And it was like, okay, we had to basically get rid of Cousins and find a quarterback in the future, had to get younger, had to clear up cap space, had to sign Jefferson. And, he said, we're not taking any victory laps because you're never complete, right? And it doesn't mean guarantee you, but
right.
I wonder if this thing followed the timeline that they initially thought when they sat down. That's what I would love to know.
That's a great question. I wondered that, and also how fluid was the document as far as like Kirk goes? Like, were they privately both in agreement? Which, if they were, then O'Connell is the greatest actor on the face of the earth. But like, were they privately in agreement that, hey, that we'll keep Kirk for another year, blah blah blah, but then he's gone, or was Crazy saying, because it makes sense for his job to go get a cheaper quarterback, and then Kevin, I'm sure likes to have a guy that knows his system inside and out. So I'm curious how fluid that document was, and like, did their documents read identically?
Yeah, well, that's it. Was it like quarterback at some point?
Yeah,
at some point. We're not going to.
And then what did it look like by quarterback? That's what I want to know.
That's right. Well, because as much as you always want to be on the same, the same game plan, coaches and GMs sometimes look at things differently. I mean,
100%.
Coaches have to worry about today. GMs have to worry about today and tomorrow and next week.
Yes.
And so I do wonder if they. I bet the quarterback one. The timing of that one was at some point you had to turn it over, right? You had to find a quarterback's future. But was it 1 year, 2 years? Let's see how this plays out with Kirk type thing. But it seems like to me, just on the outside, if you think about what we think would have been on that document, they pretty much checked a lot of things off the list, right?
No, I agree completely. And they've had, because I think when they played their last game, in Detroit, I think there were a lot of question marks. Like, what are they going to do in March? What are they going to do in the draft? Is Kirk coming back? And again, like with the Wolves right now, these guys, some guys might bust. I have no idea. But that being said, if you were to say, hey, Judd, on July 1st, this is going to be what the Vikings accomplished, that's a pretty good process. Like, yeah, I'm with you.
In 2 years. Yeah.
Yep. And it was also, and you won't convince me otherwise, it was also basically holding firm in 2022. Like, I still don't think a new GM and coach would have gone down the path that they did unless you were told, hey, don't do too much with this team. Yeah. So, yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, well, I thought Mark Wilf and, they laid that out when they said whatever the thing was, super competitive or
and they won 13
they
games,
won 13.
Right?
Yeah, so it was like they weren't necessarily wrong. It just so they're in a good spot, I think.
Absolutely. All right, Roscoe. Final question belongs to you. It's up there. Go ahead.
I got to know, as another personality on Purple Daily once called me the special teams whisperer, I need to know,
right,
how's my guy Will Reichard looking? Have we even seen him? Is he behind closed doors?
The last OTA, so they held, it got goofed up. So they held minicamp early in June, and then a week of OTAs after. Ordinarily, the camp ends the off-season program. Reichard, I guess, I was not there. The veterans were all gone. They brought the rookies and the young guys in for a day of OTAs indoors, and all reports were Reichard was booming the football 60 some odd yards.
Love it. I really thought when
of course, no one was there. So
no one was there. It did happen.
Yeah.
Kicking problems are gone. No, the kicking problems are never going to be gone, right?
When you started with B, I thought it was going to be brutal. And apologies on my voice. I'm dealing with some sinus issues. But
although I do think we're going to have a punting competition, gentlemen. I don't know that Ryan Wright's going to win this job this time.
I actually thought the Vikings may draft a punter instead of a place kicker.
I
was on the Tory Taylor bandwagon.
Yeah, he's. What round did he go in? I mean, he was
fourth, I believe, right?
Yeah,
fourth.
Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't pay attention to Riker, but I have, he has a track record, and he's kicked in big games in college, and we'll see how he does. But
speaking of special teams, Chipper, the one thing we didn't see much of at all, I don't think we ever saw
the kickoff,
the formation, the kickoff. They held it from us. I think they did it before because they kept backing up when we were allowed in.
They did that early during the walkthrough.
Were done early.
I'm excited to see how that thing works. We'll have to have a whole show break that down. Yeah, I've seen video of it. I'm like, man, this is going to be so different.
I'm irrationally excited about this.
Yep, me too.
I've never been excited about kickoffs in my,
I haven't either.
15 years. I'm 54. I'm irrationally excited about kickoffs
I'm the
now,
same way.
which says more about me than football, I think.
It
I'm
used
the
to
same
be
way.
used to be one of the most fun parts of watching the game until they completely took it away. And I
And
understand.
then it just became boring.
Yep,
I was like,
correct.
yeah.
Yep, and I understand why they did it. But now, when you saw one in the last decade, you were entirely surprised by it. You couldn't even fathom it because nobody ever took it out.
And now we don't know what it's going to look like. That's my favorite.
I have no
part.
idea what I know. Yeah.
2 guys back, I think.
There's going to be teams are going to approach it differently, I think.
And it doesn't have to be a return guy now. It can be because it's more of a. It's if you look at the fundamental personnel setup, it's more of a run play.
Yeah.
It's not the.
It's going to be fun.
Get the head start. So, all right, Chipper, great stuff. Of course, check
out
boys. Scoggins stuff in Star Tribune, startribune.com. He's Ross. I'm Judd. We'll see you later.